Lincoln Riley knows the 2025 season is a big one for him, and it's a team that he brings back that brings some excitement with them. And we'll see if that turns into some wins that are big time. But this is a team that is ready to prove that they can do that. And Lincoln Riley is going to be a big reason why. And today we're going to take a deep dive into the USC Trojans to see what we should expect from this team in 2025. A 7-6 season last year was overall disappointing. I think even when you lose Caleb Williams, the expectations for Lincoln Riley, specifically because of what he did at Oklahoma, were a reason why fans expected the success to continue. I don't think a lot of people thought, hey, we're going to take a step back. Lincoln Riley has done a lot of good things as a head coach, and people just kind of expected him to do it again at USC. He made some staffing changes over the last couple years, and now I think he has everything where he wants it to be, and that's a big reason why they're excited about what this team could be this year. Now, the transfer portal and the departures that you see are going to hurt for some of them. You know, losing Miller Moss is probably not one of those that you're super concerned about losing, especially because Jaden Maeva took over for him last year. So you're not really worried about him. You lose Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner at the running back position, but you bring in some talent and you return some talent that you feel really good about. You lose Deuce Robinson, and Kyra Hunson, and Zachariah Branch, but the wide receiver position might be better than it was last year because of the talent you have returning. You lose some offensive linemen that are going to hurt. You lose some defensive linemen. There's plenty of talent that hits the door, but you also brought in players that you feel really good about in terms of replacing those guys. So you bring in certain players that should start right away, guys that could compete for starting spots. So you bring in the running back position is a good one. You do lose Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner, but you bring in Eli Sanders from New Mexico. You bring in Waymon Jordan from Hutchinson Community College. So you don't necessarily have to worry too much about that position. That's just going to be a really fun position to pay attention to. And what this offense will succeed with is having a more balanced approach. We'll dive into that more here in a little bit. You bring in two offensive linemen in DJ Wingfield and DeAndre Reed from the transfer portal. You bring in Prince Strawn from Boise State. I think the offense didn't need a ton, but you did a good job of bringing in supplemental pieces for the guys that you already had coming back, and then you help the rushing attack with the guys that you bring in. You bring in Keyshawn Silver and Jamal Jarrett on the interior. Defensive tackle was a premium position in the transfer portal this year, so the fact that they got two of them speaks to what this staff, I think, is capable of doing in terms of recruiting. You bring in two secondary players as well, and Bishop Fitzgerald at safety and DJ Harvey. We'll obviously dive into them. You also bring in a bigger name that is ready to, I think, take a step in his young career in Kennedy Urlacher. There's so many pieces that we'll dive into, and you should have a lot of excitement about what this team can do because of those guys, combining them with the players that they have coming back. Jay Maeva has a lot of work to do. There was some excitement, and there was also some confusion, I think, about bringing him from UNLV to USC. It wasn't like he had the best year at UNLV, but he did have a successful season. So some people were confused about why they bring him in. I think last year you saw some of the glimpses of what he's capable of doing. You'd like to see him complete some more passes, obviously, but throwing for 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns in his limited time as the starting quarterback gave you some excitement for 2025. Now, you also have Lincoln Riley's track record with quarterbacks, and if Maeva can't do it, then Husan Longstreet might be the next guy up, and that's a freshman who has a ton of ability. You also bring in Sam Heward from Utah, former Washington and Cal Poly transfer. Maybe he's going to be part of that as well, but Maeva appears to be the guy right now with Longstreet waiting for his opportunity. And again, I think there are still some people that believe that Lincoln Riley is still very much capable of taking quarterbacks to that next level. We don't necessarily know that yet, especially after last year, but there is still that hope that he is still capable of doing that for his guy. And when you look at what they have around them, you feel like that maybe is going to be the case this year. We'll talk about two big time wide receivers here in a little bit that are going to make that happen. But Maeva has a lot of pressure on his shoulders, not just to keep his job, but take USC back to where it wants to be and doing it in the Big Ten. It's not the Pac-12 anymore, where it might have been easier to compete at the top of the conference. You are in a deeper conference now. You have more contenders that you have to beat out. And when you look at the schedule they have this year, I think there are still plenty of challenges that await them. And especially after some of the disappointments you saw in 2024, you're trying to find ways to avoid those types of results. Now, the rushing attack is going to be fun because you bring in Eli Sanders from New Mexico. He had a big year for the Lobos, 1,063 yards, averaged 7.2 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns. Waymon German will also be part of that, coming in from Hutchinson Community College. Those are two guys that, if they're able to play to the level that this team needs them to, it's going to balance out the offense. I mean, this is the 10th best passing attack last year, 82nd rushing attack. If you find ways to balance that out more, you're looking at the Lincoln Riley offenses that we saw in the past. You're looking at a balanced approach, a balanced attack, and Sanders and Jordan are going to play a big role in that. Now, maybe some younger players like a Brian Jackson, Riley Wormley, those are guys that could be part of that as well. But the rushing attack, I think, should be in good hands, even with losing two of your better players at that position. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, the quarterback position probably isn't going to play a huge role in the rushing attack, but they will benefit from Sanders and Jordan and whoever else contributes to that rotation being better than they were in 2024. So that's something to keep an eye on. If you're looking for a reason why USC gets better, I mean, there's probably multiple of them, but if this offense finds more balance, that's going to make them more dangerous. That's going to make them better at putting points on the scoreboard. They finished 51st last year. They had averaged 30.2 points per game. So putting more points on the scoreboard is going to be a big way to do that. The defense obviously has a lot of work to do as well. But at the same time, you feel pretty good about what you could do with the guys that you have coming back. We'll obviously dive more into the defense here in just a little while. The passing attack should be just as good as it was, if not better. The fact that you're okay with the wide receivers you let go, maybe losing Zachariah Branch wasn't the one you wanted to see, but I think they're okay with losing Kyron Hudson and Deuce Robinson because of what you have returning. Jacoby Lane is an absolute stud, and the production is probably not what you would think for a guy with his talent, but that was also because there were plenty of touches going around last year. So now you kind of, I don't want to say thin out the talent, but you get rid of some of the players, or you see some of those guys depart that were taking away some of those opportunities. Now you give this team maybe a better chance to be more explosive. Jacoby Lane is really good. Mekhi Lemon is also a stud. If you're looking for a guy that is your next 1,000-yard receiver with this team, pick between one of these two guys and you're going to be in a good spot. You're going to be seeing a lot of good things from these two, and teams should be worried about what this USC offense is capable of doing as long as the quarterback position is feeling comfortable, feeling confident, and making those throws. Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon are going to be a really fun tandem to watch, and that's going to open up the field for somebody else. You bring in Prince Strong from Boise State. He had 25 catches for 304 yards and 1 touchdown. He has the speed to stretch the field as well. He is someone that can make life difficult for the guys that he faces. So you feel really good about what this team could do in 2025 because the passing attack is going to be really dangerous. And when you look at what you need from the wide receiver position, you need them to be dangerous because the quarterback position will need some time to sort things out. They will need some time to learn who is going to be the starter and who is going to have the most confidence early in the season. But Maeva, I think, has the right amount of talent to make that happen. And I think that he is going to be really fun to watch when it's all said and done. and Page and Lemon are going to be Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon are going to be a big reason for that. But what do you look at in terms of depth? What do you have coming back that can make that happen? You bring in a guy like Zacharias Williams from Utah, only had 10 catches last year. Jaden Richardson, 1 catch for this team in 2024. Jay Fair, 8 catches. Somebody younger maybe steps up. I don't necessarily know who that's going to be, but I think overall, this is a team that is very capable of finding someone to take that step. And with Lincoln Riley running the show, you feel really good about what this team could do as long as you have that depth, because the starters are in a great place. It's just going to come down to how do you find the guys to give them a break? How do you find the depth and who is ready to take that step, if anybody is ready? Because you need that fourth or fifth option, especially in this offense that wants to distribute the football. You're going to give Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane really good opportunities, but who else is going to be able to supplement them when they need them? The tight end position could be part of that as well. Lake McCree had 24 catches for 245 yards last year. Walker Lyons, 6 catches for 36 yards. So you have guys that could potentially step into those roles, but you're kind of in that wait and see position right now before someone actually is capable of showing that. So it's kind of on hold for the time being, but you definitely have options. The place where I think you get the most excited about this team is probably wide receiver. But if there's a group that's going to have a big time impact on the success of this team, it's up front. The offensive line is going to have multiple experienced players, whether it's coming back or coming to the program. And that makes you excited for what this team could do. Now, what DJ Wingfield and DeAndre Reed are able to do in this conference, we will see. You know, Wingfield comes in from Purdue, so he's very familiar with this conference, but is he capable of taking his game to another level to help USC? Purdue had its struggles for sure, but they did have some nice pieces, and Wingfield obviously was one of them. Reed, we knew that this was a team that would see some departures in Syracuse, and he has a ton of experience to bring to the table as well. He's a nice piece to have, especially with a quarterback that needs some consistency up front. Reed is going to give you that experienced center that knows what he's doing. Obviously has to learn the new system, but you feel really good about what he brings to the table. Alani Noah has a ton of experience as well. Started 12 games last year. So the interior defensive or offensive line is going to be in a great position overall. The tackle positions, you have one guy that is in a great place, and Elijah Page started all 13 games for this team last year. The right tackle position is where you maybe have more concerns. When you look at who could be the stars, Tobias Raymond could be one of those guys. I think this one is going to be a competition. Justin Toano is going to be that other guy. And right now you feel really good about either option if you're Lincoln Riley. And the competition is good because you need to have two guys that don't have a ton of starting experience, and you're going to make them prove which one of them actually deserves that role. I think that's good, especially in the Big Ten. The rest of the depth is relatively unproven right now. Killian O'Connor does have quite a bit of experience, though, so you have a couple of guys behind the starters that you feel good about. It's just a matter of finding that other depth. The offense, though, feels like it's in good hands. The offense is in a good position to have success in 2025. It's just going to come down to how much work do they have to do? What is this defense capable of doing? And the performance last year is a big reason why you bring in a defensive coordinator like D'Anton Lynn. And D'Anton Lynn is one of the better defensive coordinators in college football. And he is going to have, I think, a big time impact. We're going to see you bring him in last year, obviously, to make some things change. And it wasn't going to happen overnight. But this is the year I think a lot of people expect to see this team take a step forward. And the defensive line is going to play a huge role in that. And this is a defensive line that I think could be really exciting in the Big Ten. Anthony Lucas is someone that they're waiting for him to take that step. Only played in 7 games last year, but when he plays at his peak, he's a dangerous player on the edge. Opposite of him, you have guys like Cameron Fountain and Braylon Shelby. Those are two guys that showed what they can do in spurts last year. Fountain had 19 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Shelby, 28 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. So that trio there should be really exciting as long as they're going to stay healthy, as long as they're going to take their abilities to the level that we know they're capable of bringing it to. That's going to be a big reason why they have success. Everything starts up front, and that's not any different than any other team in college football. D'Anton Lynn knows that if he has talent up front, you saw what he was capable of doing at UCLA when he had talented defensive linemen. The defensive ends are going to play a huge role. And if you go back and look at his Bruins defensive lines, the defensive ends were a big reason why they had success. And that should be no different at USC. Now, a younger player like Jakeem Stewart could be part of that as well. Someone like Kalen Miller, Elijah Newby, there are plenty of options, but right now there's some unproven options behind that starting trio. Now, the interior defensive line will be a good group, I think, overall. You bring in Keyshawn Silver from Kentucky, 26 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack. Jamal Jarrett from Georgia, 3 tackles for him. You'll also have Devin Tompkins coming back, had a solid year, 24 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. I think that this interior defensive line has plenty of competition, and I think that means that you have good depth. And it'll just come down to what is the ceiling of this interior defensive line? How well can they play, and how disruptive can they be? You bring in a couple players like Silver and Jarrett because you maybe thought we don't have enough bodies to compete. And I think you kind of put them in there and you expect them to be a big part of it. Tompkins is obviously that piece that you knew what you had. But after that, you're kind of looking for other guys to step up, but you have guys in place that are ready to do that. It's just a matter of who that's going to be. And again, everything starts up front. If you have a good defensive line, and we've seen that with Lynn's defenses in the past, this is a group that's going to take big steps in 2025. And the linebackers should see some of those benefits this year as well, if that group is able to play at the level we expect. Eric Gentry is back for another year, 33 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, getting a little bit more familiar as an off-ball linebacker. It'll be fun to see how he takes his game to another level. Desmond Stevens comes back. He had 13 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 forced fumble. So I think that that's a group that can play better, I think. And I think that's a tandem that should be really fun to pay attention to this year. You bring in a guy like Tamir Robinson, who played for Penn State last year, 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. After them, kind of similar to the interior defensive line, you're looking for new faces to insert themselves into that rotation. Dane Walker's a redshirt freshman who could be part of that. Roman Marchetti could be part of that as well. I think you have interesting options. It's just going to come down to which one of them is capable of stepping up and being that big time playmaker. Which one of them is ready to take on that new role, because Gentry's had injury issues in the past, but if he stays healthy, he's obviously one of those guys. The linebacker position is asked a lot in defenses this year. You have to do a lot of things, and you need depth, especially if you want to take a step this year. You need guys that can step in when called upon. And the linebacker position should benefit from better play up front, but they also themselves need to play well to make this defense better. And this is a group that when you look at it on paper, that should be better. You bring in Lynn, obviously, and this is the year you expect them to take that step. Now, the secondary, I think, has a ton of potential to be really good in 2025. The cornerback position is probably the one you have maybe the most concerns, if you will, about. Prophet Brown, one, has a great name, but I think he is ready to take a big step for this defense. DeCarlos Nicholson returns, enters the transfer portal, decides to come back. 27 tackles for him, 5 passes defended. Behind them, you have Alex Graham, a freshman that could play a role, Marcellus Williams, Chasen Johnson, who comes in from UCF, Braylon Conley. You have younger and inexperienced players that are looking to solidify their roles. The cornerback position is really where you're going to have to keep an eye on, and maybe you have the bigger concerns of the secondary positions. You bring in Bishop Fitzgerald to play one of the safety positions from NC State. 55 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 8 passes defended, 3 interceptions. You also return Kamari Ramsey, a guy who is familiar with D'Anton Lynn and knows what he wants to do defensively. 60 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 5 passes defended, 1 interception. Behind them is where I think things get really interesting. Kennedy Urlacher is going to be really fun in this defense. I think that Notre Dame is really bummed that they lost him, and he'll be fun to watch in a D'Anton Lynn defense. 12 tackles for him, 1 tackle for loss. Wasn't playing a ton at Notre Dame. Maybe that was part of it. It'll be fun to see what he can do in this defense. Christian Pierce had 8 tackles last year. Isaiah Rubin's a redshirt freshman that this staff is excited about. So you have younger players that are the future of this program, but they might have to play bigger roles this year, and that's an exciting thing overall. DJ Harvey comes in from San Jose State to play the nickel position. 58 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions. Can he take that step from the group of 5 to the Big Ten? That's a big question. Anthony Beavers is also someone to keep an eye on at that position. 18 tackles for him in 2024. So overall, this is a secondary that has a lot of excitement. This is a secondary that should be really fun, and one that should help this group be better than 98th against the pass in 2024 or in 2025, be better than they were in 2024. The schedule gives you kind of a runway to get things going. You have easier games right off the bat. You host Missouri State and Georgia Southern. Those are games that should allow you to get kind of the rust off, if you will. Get some guys that need a little bit of time to get into the swing of things. Then you go to Purdue, another game that should be kind of like that. Michigan State could be tricky. That's a team that should be better, but USC should definitely be the better team there. The trip to Illinois on September 27th, that'll be one to watch. That is a team that should be very tough, and it'll give us our first measuring stick of where this team actually stands. You then get a bye week before you host Michigan, another good measuring stick game for sure. Michigan is a team that has a lot to prove as well. So that one could be a super intense game. Then you get the Notre Dame game. We don't really have to dive into the importance of that and what that could be. That could be an absolutely massive game in South Bend, and with everything going on outside of, off the field, that is going to be a really fun one to watch. Your final bye week comes before you head into November, and then you go to Nebraska, host Northwestern in Iowa. You travel to Oregon and host UCLA. So those final few games do present quite a few challenges, but it's truly the middle of the season where you have those really tough games. So if you're looking for improvement, the schedule definitely allows you to do that. The schedule gives you a lot of winnable games, and it gives you opportunities also to potentially put yourself in that higher tier. Games against Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, those are tough games that you'll have to find ways to compete, but it gives you the opportunity to surprise people. It gives you opportunities to say, this is a Lincoln Riley team that's back to where we expected it to be. This is a team that is ready to compete in the Big Ten once again. Or I should say compete in a big conference once again, not in the Big Ten. But this is a program that wants to win football games again. I think Lincoln Riley is very capable of making that happen. And if certain pieces take the steps that they need them to, this could be a surprise team in 2025.